How did you break your parents? You want your real dad to be on the invitation, to give you away and to sit at the head table? Fine, your real dad can pay for everything too. My stepdaughter will be getting married on August 3rd. The wedding planning has consumed most of her and her mother's life. I say her mother because we aren't married, though we've lived together for 10 years, for the past 6 months. My stepdaughter graduated last December from university. I paid for her to go to college, though it was a state school, it still ran $40,000. She does not have a job and has been living with us for the duration of her college career and since her graduation. I also bought her a car to get back and forth from school when she finished high school. From time to time her deadbeat father would pop into her life and she would fawn all over him. Although he has not contributed a cent to her education or paid any child support, though that is my girlfriend's fault as CS was not part of the settlement, she still loves him and wants him in her life. He stays long enough to break her heart by skipping town and breaking some promise that he made her. The wedding venue holds 250 people max. I gave them a list of 20 people that I wanted invited, since I was paying for everything. They told me that was no problem and they'd take care of it. So I let these people know they'd be getting an invite and they should save the date. Saturday, I saw one of my friends on this list at the golf course and asked if he was coming. He told me that he wasn't invited. He told me that he got an announcement, but not an invitation. He had it in his back seat, along with probably 6 months of mail, and showed it to me. Sure enough, it was just an announcement, and my name was nowhere on it. It had her dad's name and her mom's name and not mine. This led to a pretty big fight with my girlfriend, as I found out that none of my list of 20 made the cut for the final guest list because 250 people is very tight. I was pissed, but not a hell of a lot I could do because the important people in my life had already been offended. My girlfriend said if some people didn't RSVP yes, I might be able to get a couple people in. But that is an ultimate slap in the face in my opinion. So, I was boiling on Saturday. Yesterday, we had a Sunday dinner with the future in-laws family and us and a surprise guest, the real dad. At this little dinner my stepdaughter announced that her real dad was going to be able to make it to her wedding and that now he'd be able to give her away. This was greeted with a chorus of oh how great and how wonderful s. I don't think I have ever felt so angry and so disrespected. I was shaking. I took a few seconds to gather my composure, because I honestly wasn't sure if I would cry or start throwing punches or both. Once I was sure I'd be able to speak I got up from my chair and said I'd like to make a toast. I can't remember exactly what I said but the gist of it was this: I'd like to make a toast. The sound of spoons against glasses ring in my ears. It has been my great pleasure to be a part of this family for the past 10 years. Aw, how sweet. At this point in my life I feel I owe a debt of gratitude to bride and groom, because they have opened my eyes to something very important. Confident smiles exchanged. They have showed me that my position in this family is not what I once thought it was. And now a glimmer of confusion and shock begins to spread on the faces in the room. Though I once thought of myself as the patriarch or godfather of the family, commanding great respect and sought out for help in times of need, it seems instead that I hold the position of an ATM, good for a stream of money, but not much else. As I have been replaced as host, both on the invitations and in the ceremony, I am resigning my financial duties as host to my successor, real dad. So cheers to the happy couple and the path they have chosen. I finished my drink. You all can let yourselves out. Is this selfish? I'm supposed to shell out 40 to 50 grand for a wedding that I can't invite anyone to? That I am not a part of? I'm so done with this crap. I'm done with my stepdaughter. I'm done with my girlfriend. I transferred the money out of our joint account last night. She has not had a job since she moved in with me. This morning I called all the vendors I had written checks to for deposits to refund my money. At present it looks like I'll lose around $1,500 for the venue, but the other vendors have been great about refunding. Update: how did you break your parents? The immediate aftermath was tantrum and people sitting there mumbling while not actually saying anything to me, but to each other. After much yelling with the girlfriend about me being selfish, I spent the night in my home office and no one knocked on my door, not once. Today's aftermath is kind of depressing for me. Girlfriend brought me bride's wedding planner to show me how much work I was ruining. I thumbed through it, found a page in the music section for father-daughter dances. All of the songs were catered to real dad's taste. So I thought they were just being disrespectful, but now I'm feeling like they never really gave a crap at all, especially since the menu included 2 ingredients I'm allergic to. That actually made me laugh. Either way, I'm glad to be done. Returned the planner and asked her when she and bride could move out. Also, I never promised to pay for the wedding. I offered them the use of my home when they were sure it was going to be small, but other than that, all I've heard is how it's the bride's family that should pay, so, let it be the bride's family then, also known as, not me. Girlfriend and bride are now moved out. They are moving in with the groom. It was very hard not to be petty with some of the belongings they took with them, but it's done and I switched out the locks and now it's time for a brew. I can't believe how popular this story got, but I feel good to be given support by so many. If I find out what happens with the wedding, I will let you know, but I can't guarantee that I will put in the effort to find out. From what I've heard they are trying to scale things back and get his parents to help out. Girlfriend burned bridges when I found out she tried to write herself a check on our joint account the day after the unpleasantness. By then I had already moved money, so I guess I'm a bigger ass than her, but I could feel it coming.
Next story.
Am I the a-hole for leaving my girlfriend over her disgusting habits? My girlfriend has always been a strong environmentalist. It was one of the things that attracted me to her in the first place. We met as co-workers when we both worked for a non-profit whose work focused on sustainability. We bonded over our mutual love for nature, and I started falling for her as soon as she asked me out on a hiking date. After that, there were many more hiking dates, and 3 years later, we are deeply in love and living together with our 2 dogs. I have since moved on from working for the nonprofit, and even though she has been offered higher paying positions, my girlfriend has kept her job at the nonprofit since she is so passionate about the work. This decision of hers has also resulted in me paying the majority of the bills since she has not gotten a raise since she started there. This didn't bother me. I love my girlfriend and I am grateful for the life we're able to share together. I have always admired her passion for the earth, and her driven attitude at her job has always stunned me. Yet lately, she has been stunning me in a different way. As I said, a big reason I fell for my girlfriend was because of her passion for environmentalism. But lately, she has been displaying some extremist behaviors. It all started when she got this new natural deodorant. She explained to me in a long rant about how bad normal deodorants were, and how their packaging was so wasteful. Her new deodorant comes in recyclable packaging and is aluminum-free. The thing is, it straight up does not work. Ever since she started wearing it, she has had a certain BO funk about her. It ruins cuddle time and we also have not been intimate for a while because of this problem. The last time I tried to be intimate with her, I was so turned off by her smell, I just asked her if we could stop. I have tried telling her about the way she smells, but she just brushes me off saying she can't smell it and she was doing this for the earth. The deodorant was only the tip of the iceberg. Next, she replaced her toothpaste with a homemade herb blend and she now only washes her hair once a month. My once lovely, fresh-smelling girlfriend, now walks around smelling like a sewer drain. Everything from her breath to her pits to her hair now smells like a dumpster. I don't even know how I have managed to live with her and share a bed with her for this long since she adopted these habits. Recently, she started free bleeding instead of using pads or tampons, all in the name of sustainability. It's disgusting. She leaves patches of dried blood on our kitchen chairs and couch. When I try to plead with her to find more clean sustainability practices, she just scolds me for not caring about mother. After she started free bleeding, I started to think about breaking up. It was ripping me apart, since despite all this, I still loved her with all my heart, and I didn't want to give our life up. But I just couldn't take it anymore when I came home yesterday and found she had thrown away the bag of our dog's $80 food. I was confused when I couldn't find it, and I asked her if she had moved it. Without looking up from her computer, my girlfriend told me she had thrown the dog's food out, and that the dogs would be eating a vegan diet from now on. I reached my limit, and at that moment I absolutely lost it. I let out all my true feelings about her new habits. I told her how I was sick of her stink, that I was sick of her in general. I screamed that this vegan dog diet was complete bullshit, and neither of the dogs would be eating anything but the food they'd been eating for years. I started crying as I yelled. I felt like I was watching the death of our relationship. My girlfriend just stared at me. After I finished talking, all my girlfriend had to say was okay. She said I clearly wasn't serious about environmentalism, and that if I truly cared about the earth that I would support her. Her face was so cold, it was like she didn't even care. I knew at that moment that our love had come to an end. I didn't recognize the person in front of me. My heart broke, it's still broken, and now I'm all alone. Without my girlfriend, without my dogs, but at least I can actually breathe without gagging now.
Next story.
Try to accuse me of rope. Enjoy some jail time. My ex-wife accused me of intimate assault when I was 10 hours away. Then may have tried to trap me over a year later. This occurred 7 months after my wife and I separated. When we separated, she was sent to her mother's house, which was on the opposite side of the country. From there, she got kicked out by her mother, then her cousin, then her other cousin, etc. Basically everyone in her family saw her true self. Then she went off grid. Right around the 7-month mark, neither my son or I had heard from her for months. I was bopping along at work. I've worked from home for over a decade. When I get a knock at the door, at 9 a.m., time is important. A deputy was at the door, and told me I was wanted for the sexual assault of my wife the previous night. I told him I had been home all evening, that this never occurred, and this was not the first time she made false allegations. TL, doctor, you won't buy me more vodka at midnight? Then I'm going to call the cops on you. I asked where she had stated the assault occurred. He gave me the name of a city that isn't in our state. It's not in an adjoining state. Driving, it takes 10 hours to get there. It's an hour away from the nearest airport, so even if I flew, it would be at least 8 hours. Then the kicker. Her report came in at around midnight. She was at a hotel, under the influence, and at a hospital detox. She claimed I was there, and hurt her. I asked the deputy if he was serious, or if this was a gag. He was dead serious. He didn't arrest me, but I had to go to their station and give a statement. In my statement I pointed out that it would be a 20-hour round trip by car. They let me go, never heard from them again. Now, fast forward to this year. Roughly 13 additional months have passed. Ex-wife had been communicating with our son more, but hadn't visited or seen him for over 18 months. She wanted to visit, he said yes but only in public. Perfect. We met at an outdoor local mall. It really sucked. 45 minutes before. My son asked to bail. He got tired of her not caring about what he was saying, and interrupting to talk about her cats or her tattoo that gives her power. She had some documents for me. My son doesn't know, but she signed off custody. When she went to the bathroom I looked through them quick, and noticed an item titled Victim Safe Harbor Plan. It was a document plan for her trip. Drawn up by a domestic violence shelter in the state she was living in. It listed me as the abuser, and her the victim. It had everything from don't tell him what hotel you are in, don't accept physical interaction, and don't get into his car. I hid it before she got back. Y'all. She asked me to drive her to her hotel. And mentioned that if I dropped our son off at home first, she could show me her new lingerie. She said that part in front of our son. Of course I declined. Our bedroom had been dead long before our separation. Once we got home, it kinda hit me. I read it again. My son caught me grumbling to myself, and asked to see it. I couldn't hide it. He had been reading over my shoulder. I was lost in thought. He looked it over, looked at me, and said, "Dad, she was trying to get you arrested." It shook me a bit, and still does to this day. I won't know if it was her plan, but if I had driven her to her hotel, she could have had someone watching. And claim that she came back with bruises. If I had taken her up on her other invitation, all she would have to do was scream rope.
Next story.
Am I the a-hole for kicking my daughter-in-law out? I'm a young mother-in-law, I'm only 39. Had my kids pretty young and I am very lucky that my husband makes a lot of money so I don't have to work. I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time, and once they started to spread their wings instead of going to work my husband and I decided I would be a homemaker and be active in the community. That's what I have been up to and I try to make the community a better place. Now my oldest son is 22 and married and I was really excited until I met her. In general she is a very business-focused person that is very blunt. I actively dislike her, but I try to be polite for my son's sake. A few examples of why I don't like her: her wedding gift I handed over saying it was for me and my husband. She responded back with "just your husband since I know it wasn't your money that paid for it." Saying I am volunteering, well that's not a real job since it doesn't make money. It's passive aggressive, and yes I have talked to my son about it and even once with her to try to clear the air. We had a get-together last night and I made a homemade meal. When I was playing everything she came up and made the comment, "Other no wonder I could make a home-cooked meal, I don't do anything else with my day." I lost it and told her that she needs to respect me or get the F out of my house. She was shocked and then started to cry when I did kick her out. My son is pissed and we had a huge argument and he called me a huge a-hole. I need an outside opinion.
Next story.
What's a disturbing secret that your family keeps? Why we don't see Uncle Mark anymore. This was told to me by my dad over a drink recently. He'd gotten a little drunk and ended up admitting it to me. Uncle Mark was my favorite uncle when I was a child. He always invited me around to show me his airsoft gun collection, hide and seek parties with my friends and even took us to the beach. He would always come with sweets for us and acted like one of us, another child who just wanted to have fun. But then, the day I, 7 years old, was meant to be going around because we were going for a ride to this amazing place. My dad was happy and cheerful for the entire day. He was going on about how much he loved the fact his brother wanted to be in his children's life. Until he got a call. I was in my room, packing my stuff when I heard the most blood-curdling scream from my dad. He was screaming and raging. I heard him rip open our front door and slam it back shut with enough force to make the picture next to it fall off the wall. I didn't see my dad for a long while after that, and he never told me why until we had this talk, but that shall be explained at the end. Mom had a lot of money saved up from a minor lotto win so we were okay, and she always smiled and said Daddy is just away for a little while because he was looking after me and my siblings whenever I asked where he was. Uncle Mark didn't come around either during this time, but we did see him in town a couple times. Funnily enough, he ran away the moment my mom saw me waving at him. 9 months later, Dad came home and I excitedly ran and hugged him. He hugged me right on back with a good squeeze. We had a party to celebrate him coming home. We had Perry food and cake and all the usual stuff. I was just happy my dad was home though. A week or so later, Dad sat me down with the other children and explained that Uncle Mark wouldn't be coming around anymore. When asked why, he just said Uncle Mark was a bad person and that if he ever tried to talk to us, we were to ignore him and come find one of them. We all agreed because my dad always knew best after all. One day, a year or so later, 9 at this point, I'm coming out of school to wait for my parents to pick me up. My other siblings were either at secondary school or too young for school, so it was just me. I see Uncle Mark stood there with a big grin. I get nervous when he comes up to me, saying he's here to take me for a ride. I tell him I'm not supposed to talk to him, that he's a bad person like my dad said. Uncle Mark got this scary look on his face for a second, then told me it was all good and his parents had changed their mind and made to take my hand. That's when I saw my dad just appear. My dad punched Uncle Mark right in the face and little old me saw blood fly as Uncle Mark went sprawling. I didn't see much after that except Uncle Mark running away with my dad chasing him. He came back after a little while, sighed and took me in a hug. He told my mom to take me home and that he'd see us later. I don't know why, but I knew there and then it would be a long time before I ever saw my dad again. And I was right. 5 years. 5 years my dad was gone. My mom eventually admitted to us that he was in prison for protecting us and we all guessed he'd done something to Uncle Mark. And he had. Turns out Uncle Mark liked kids. He liked them a lot. And that day I was meant to go to his house. My aunt, Uncle Mark's wife, had called my dad and told him she'd found some pictures under her and Mark's bed of children and she was scared of what to do because Mark was a big man and it was later revealed he abused her, so she was scared to call the police on him. And my dad had gone into a rage and stormed over to his house. He'd smashed in the door to find Uncle Mark screaming at my aunt as she waved the pictures around in hysterics. My dad had beaten Uncle Mark within an inch of his life, Uncle Mark screaming he'd make him pay as the police had arrested my dad. Messed up thing was, by the time my dad had explained why he had done it, Mark managed to get the pictures, burned them and scared his wife into saying nothing so there was no evidence. My dad was sent down for assault but made sure my other uncles and older cousins were around to protect us in case Mark came back. But oh no. Mark waited until my dad thought we were safe. And then, according to my dad, had come to kidnap me from the school right under their noses. Who would stop him? People didn't believe my dad when he explained Mark was a predator. They thought he was just excusing himself for attacking him. After all, the police hadn't found anything and his wife said my dad was a liar, whereas my dad was the big angry guy with a few assaults under his belt already. So all they saw was my nice uncle here to pick me up. He had gotten away from my dad at the school. My dad had tripped and it gave him the chance to run. But my dad knew where he would go. Knew Uncle Mark would run home to hide and more than likely destroy any evidence he had gotten since destroying the last lot. He also knew the police would be on his tail for the attack on the school, so he didn't have long. Difference was, though, my dad had his car while Uncle Mark was on foot. So, he drove over and demanded to know if my aunt was going to lie again, after what Uncle Mark had just tried to pull. Now, I don't like my aunt much after what she pulled the first time, but I think in that moment she really realized what a monster my uncle was. He was willing to do this to her nephew just for pathetic revenge for being called out as a predator. She said she wouldn't stop my dad or save Mark this time. My dad ordered her to get all the evidence she could as he waited for Mark to appear. She came back down with pictures. Lots of pictures. He then told her to go, wait 1 hour and then call the police. He was ending this. And as Uncle Mark appeared, my dad, who had been waiting behind the wall of his garden, slammed him through the door of his house. And then proceeded to beat him to death in his doorway. He apparently towards the end couldn't see the floor through the blood. My dad was arrested on murder and did so without resistance, only saying he wished they'd done his job for him. But when it was revealed that Uncle Mark was indeed a predator who had attempted to kidnap me and the fact that they had to face the fact they had allowed a predator to run free, he was instead charged for manslaughter, his lawyer stating my father had gone into a protective rage and had only intended to render him harmless. Funnily enough, no one argued in defense of the predator for my dad getting the murder charges. He said he didn't regret it, but that he wished he had done something else purely so that he didn't miss out on so much of my life. I told him I was forever going to be proud of him for that, and that I loved him. I was a bit shocked I wasn't told just what Uncle Mark was for so long. But my dad asked if it would have made it any better to be told as a child what he really was, or now as a man who can handle the truth. And he was right. Me as a child would not have been able to mentally handle it. I'm barely able to handle it now.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.